What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, this time for the new Kenneth Branagh film, The Murder on the Orient Express. Murder on the Orient Express is directed by and stars Kenneth Branagh, along with Daisy Ridley, Johnny Depp, Josh Gad, Michelle Pfeiffer, Judi Dench. A whole bunch of people are in this movie. It tells the story of Belgian detective Hercule Poirot. I'm probably pronouncing that like dog trash, but that's how I'm gonna say it because I don't know how to say it right. Played by Kenneth Branagh, and he is basically solving a mystery when, after that mystery is done, he is taking a vacation. So he goes on the Orient Express to sort of see the world a little bit, but while on that, a murder takes place, and he is forced to basically forego his holiday and solve this mystery. What makes this mystery so interesting, though, is that it takes place in the luxury cart on this very fancy train. And since they're inside just this constrained, small space, there are very few suspects. So he has to, in detail, interview all of these suspects to try and figure out what happened and who committed this crime. Now, based on the cast that I said, obviously the performances in this movie are pretty important to the story. And I have to say, everyone in this movie did a good job. I think there are certain characters that are obviously given more opportunities in the script to give better performances. I think Josh Gad is pretty good. I think Johnny Depp is really solid, even though he's basically just playing John Dillinger again from Public Enemies in this movie. But I liked it, and he did a good job doing it. Everyone else did fine. No one was a standout, really. Even the people that I'll specifically call out weren't necessarily giving phenomenal performances, but for the whole ensemble cast, everyone did a really great job. Now, the setting of this train in the film and this extreme contained thriller is really fun. It's one of the best aspects of this movie because it helps build the suspense and keep you intrigued for as long as it can. And I think that that also goes into the fact that this is sort of one of the first just classic whodunit mystery movies that we've had in a while from what I can remember. And I enjoyed that because it actually had, you know, like a guessing aspect to it for the crowd. As you're watching this film and you're seeing each interview, you slowly start to form your own opinions about what's going on. Now, that's good and also bad, as I'll get to later. Now, the set design and costume design of this film were awesome because the time period of this is late 1920s, early 1930s, which made for really cool, fancy suits and dresses for everyone in the film to be wearing, and I enjoyed that so much because I think that the time period of this film is so important because it really showcases the fact that at this time when crimes were committed, there's so little that police have to go off of other than their genuine intellect. And I think that that's really important for mystery films because when you watch a modern crime film, it's all about finding, you know, like the clues and the evidence and building a case, where in this one, it's literally just trying to even get enough that you could be like, yeah, maybe this guy did it. And I thought that that worked really well in this film. Now, as I said earlier, there are definitely issues with this film, and I think a big one is that this movie is nowhere near as clever as it thinks that it is. And I don't mean that it's like necessarily an insult to the writers of the film or anything. It's just that this movie really thinks that it has this like mind-blowing story to it, that it's like nobody in the audience will ever guess the ending and nobody's ever going to figure this out. When in reality, for me personally, while I was paying attention to the film and watching it, after one specific moment, obviously I won't spoil what it is, I kind of figured out what was going on, and for the rest of the movie, up until that big moment, you know, where the reveal happens, as in every single mystery film ever, it just was sort of boring, because it was like, alright, I'm pretty confident that I'm right in this guess, and then when that moment came, I was, and it was sort of just like, oh, so that's it? Like, that's all, that's it? That's what I get? You know, there's no, like, big payoff at the end for me personally, and I feel like, obviously there are going to be audience members that maybe have their own guesses that are incorrect, and then the ending is a surprise, but for me personally, I feel like there's such a specific aspect of this script that focuses so heavily on this one thing that it's almost impossible to get to that big moment at the end of the film and not at least have an idea of what's happened. And one of the most important parts of a mystery film is to keep the crowd on their toes, is to make sure that they don't necessarily know what's going on at all times. And I feel like this movie did its best to do that. Some of the interview sequences, some of the things that we found out about certain characters really did do that. They change your perspective on what was going on. And that's awesome. But after a couple specific moments that happen a little over halfway through the film, it becomes somewhat obvious as to how this story is going to play out. And also along with that, the pacing of this film is just kind of all over the place. While some interviews carry a ton of knowledge about the case, other ones feel almost unnecessary in the film in the interview, because they give you such a small amount of anything to work with in the script that it's like, why did this belong in the film? Like, this character doesn't necessarily bring anything to this case or to any other sequences in the film. I don't want to say any specific characters because, like I said, all the performances are good, but there's certain characters in this film that just play such a small role that it's like, what was the purpose really? It all just felt very routine and boring after a certain point, seeing all of these interviews and eventually sort of just forming your own opinion, and if you guess right, then it's just like, oh, so that's the movie, I guess that's just it. And it also doesn't help that the tone of this film kind of flip-flops all over the place, which is very much attached to Kenneth Branagh's character. This movie tries to add comedy into this rather serious story, and it really feels out of place a lot of time. He's supposed to play kind of this like quirky, you know, detective who's kind of weird, but it's like his gift to be a detective sort of. But so much of it was just like, what? Like, where does that fit into this story? That's really weird, and it doesn't need to be there. And he just sort of felt like a really serious and good at his job version of Steve Martin from the Pink Panther, and that's not a compliment. I'm gonna give Murder on the Orient Express a C. This movie was trying to be something really awesome, and I honestly think it had the opportunity to do that with this contained murder mystery, but I really think that all they did was squander a great cast with a mediocre script that really wasn't that hard to figure out. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this review, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of Murder on the Orient Express. Check out everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and hope to see you guys later.